What's up, my people? Welcome back to Vertical Football. Welcome back to another episode of 5 Things We Learned. Brentford 3-Manchester United 1. Guys, another loss, another away game, another loss. And so, guys, a lot of talking points in today's game. Really, a lot of talking points. So, guys, let's jump right into it. I think the first thing is I want to talk about Harry Maguire. I'm not one that likes calling out players, but I feel it has gotten to a stage where we need to call out players and we need to analyze the game objectively. I know it's an easy culprit to say the formation is the problem, and I think we've been hearing a lot of that. But I feel today you cannot analyze and say the formation is the problem if you are being honest, really, because first of all, Harry Maguire, the two mistakes Harry Maguire made in this game that, in my opinion, led to the two goals that Brentford scored. Two of the three goals that Brentford scored, I would say when I saw those two mistakes, I just remembered Erik ten Hag's second game at Manchester United, where Erik ten Hag started with Lisandro Martinez and Harry Maguire. And now that Harry Maguire is one of the, I'm trying to be calm, but one of the defenders that cannot necessarily defend a high line. I know, yes, football is about strengths and weaknesses. You know, we wanted him to start this game because of his aerial powers, which he actually had in terms of defending the long throws from Brentford. But also, we have to look at it in the fact that this guy cannot defend in an eye line, and not necessarily that he cannot defend in an eye line. I think one of the major reasons is that he always gives the opponent and is the space, you know, to beat that eye line and to beat that rest defense. So, in the sense of the first goal was, to me, Luke Shaw and Delete moved at the same time. The coordination was there for the first goal. At the same time, Harry Maguire, pick up. This is rest defense. At the same line with the defenders. Move with them. But the moment where Harry Maguire is slow and forgot himself and to move, Igor took that position, you know, in between the defensive line of Shaw and Delete and Maguire. And I feel the second thing also was the fact that he was always giving them a space. Maguire always gives people spaces. And he plays for the opponent onside, which has been a part of his game. Right? But I feel I don't know. But let us analyze it the way it is. In the sense of a decision has to be made about Harry Maguire and about how we want to go forward in terms of the kind of profile of defenders we need and what kind of football we want to play moving forward. So I don't want to say my final verdict on Maguire, but I feel I've analyzed the problem. The first two goals were as a result of him playing the opponent onside. And this is not the first time that we are seeing that. We saw that even before Ruben Amorim came on board, because looking at the formation, it was perfect. It was a 3v1 situation. United had three defenders against Igor in the first goal. That is a perfect situation for rest defense. Should be light work. But Maguire made a big deal of it by not being on the same line, by not being on the same level of coordination with the remaining two center backs, and I think that was a problem. I think so. The second thing I want to say is the first goal. I feel in this game we were not wise, and I think even the preview I was like, this Brentford match we need to be wise, we need to be smart, we need to understand that there are certain games that are do's and don'ts. In football, you don't approach every football game the same way. As a player, you don't approach every football game with the same way you play. There are certain things you need to understand. Maybe it's the work of the coach. Maybe it's also you as your footballing IQ. That first of all, against a transition-based team like Brentford and what they play today and what they have played for quite a number of years, you don't force the ball into pressure points. Because look at the first goal they scored. That ball shouldn't have gone to the center of the pitch. That ball should have gone to Mbeumo, which was in the wing. So I think maybe it's what they call it. Maybe I've forgotten the player now that made that mistake. But the normal thing to do in that situation, in order not to avoid, you know, a counter attack, was actually to play to the wing. But when you play it in the middle, you are allowing them. There's a probability that place was crowded, and the moment they win the ball, they have an ability to start their counter attack. And these are the little mistakes that people make on the ball that really makes things terrible. Two mistakes in that first goal. The decision on the where to pass the ball to, the zone to pass the ball to, and secondly, the lack of coordination from Harry Maguire to follow up with his fellow defenders that have already created an eye line to put this guy offside, which I feel that is. And I think also we have to talk about that, what they call it, our midfield, this is the second point. Our midfield were too relaxed. There was no urgency no desire, no passion to want to win the game. I felt at moments in the game, especially in the second half, that the desire and the passion to push the team up, they push the team up. I felt it was lacking. It was really, really lacking. And, it was always a situation of if you could get a draw. Because when we lacked that desire, and then the penalty came, and what happened in the penalty happened in the penalty. But I felt that midfield lacked the desire to push forward. We were not able to push forward. Sometimes we took too many touches on the ball. Sometimes we were too relaxed. We're just doing rubbish really in the center of the park. And I felt that was a big mistake. So the midfield was stale. We needed someone to push up. Now, third point. When we needed someone to push up, at the moment Kobe Mino entered that game, I smiled. I said, this is a big mistake. The only logical substitution in the midfield would have been Mason Mount. Kobe Mino is a player. I think we need to understand our weaknesses and our strengths. You are playing against a side that is a very good pressing team and counter-pressing team. Very good on the transition. Now, you want to put a midfielder in, and you're putting a midfielder that takes too much time on the ball. Where it's easy for those kind of players to press and dispossess a midfielder that actually takes too much time on the ball. And you can see what happened in the third goal. I think we need to understand our strengths and weaknesses, and understand that opposition also know the strengths and weaknesses. Everybody knows that Kobe Mino is a player you can actually press because it takes too much time on the ball. What you needed in that moment was a player that can play simple, and a player that whenever there is a space, can bulldoze and push through with the ball. Which the decision of bringing Kobe Mino as a sub was a terrible decision. I think we can agree that. I know some fans will clamor that Kobe Mino should have started, but the fact is, there are obvious signs. Even the third goal was a sign that substitution for me was a substitution of just let me just play him. He shouldn't have played in that game, really. And even though you wanted him to play in that game, he shouldn't have been in the center midfield. Maybe one of the two inside forwards or two number 10s. He shouldn't have been in that situation where he has to hold the ball and where they can press him because it takes too much time on the ball. So I think the fourth thing I want to say, I'm sorry I'm calling out players, but I think that's just what the game looks like. I think Matheus Cunha was terrible in today's match. Terrible. I felt his positioning was terrible. It took too much time on the ball. His decisions were terrible. I felt a lot of the moment you are playing a three-man attack, 3-4-3, and you understand that whenever Mbeumo want to cross or whenever Dalot wants to cross, Sesko moves centrally. And when you see the way the crosses go, which happened once, which we have understood, what you should do is not to move in centrally when you are attacking the crosses. You move into the far end. And I felt a lot of the ball was coming and there was nobody to actually collect from the far end. You need to, Sesko move centrally, you need to move to the far end and actually, try and knock the ball. And I feel Zexi had, or was it centrally, but I think towards the end, there was a ball like that from Zexi in the far end. You need to be in the far end. So if somebody is crossing the ball and one person is here, another person is centrally, you need to be in the far end. And I felt if you had been in the far end, in terms of positioning, you might have controlled the ball or even nodded the ball, and maybe we could have seen a goal. So I feel a lot of individual mistakes in today's game. But lastly, final thing I would say is, I think we need to forget about, I know the easy thing in football analysis is to talk about the manager, and the manager has blame. Definitely, he has blame because he chooses the players that he wants to play, and if he makes a mistake in the substitution, I think you have to blame him. But also, you have to look at the fact that I think we have to talk about the players a lot also, because what I sensed from this game, from my own personal point of view, was that there was no responsibility. The players did not want to take responsibility because they found out that even when we lose, maybe what the media will be saying is, Amorim out, the formation is the problem. Nobody actually calls them out to say, why can't you take responsibility? Why can't you even tidy your own parts? Which I feel a lot of them did not tidy their part today. A lot of them did not tidy their part. I think the only player, if I was to even talk about a player this game, I would talk about Matthias De Ligt. I really talk about Matthias De Ligt. Really, I felt De Ligt, as with many of the games we played this season,